The government sell a new era in nuclear power. It'll boost energy security. It'll help us reach our climate targets, create new jobs. It sounds brilliant. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Society needs energy to flourish, and providing the energy in the quantities that we need reliably without the carbon cost from fossil fuels is one of the defining challenges of the 21st century. And there's a recognition today from the government that nuclear is absolutely part of that future. So I'm delighted.
Even if it takes 10 years at least?
10 years is not bad for a power station that will probably last upwards of 60 years and will supply electricity for millions of people. It's a 3.2 gigawatt nuclear reactor, so even a 10-year timescale is pretty good.
Alison Downs from Stop Sizewell C, I mean, says what it does on the tin. You don't buy this, do you?
No, I don't. I mean, this is a technology that's been fraught with difficulties everywhere. They've attempted to build it across the world. One example was offline for nearly 2 years in China. And let's talk about Hinkley Point C for a moment. If the government wants a golden age of nuclear and they want nuclear on the grid as soon as possible, why was there nothing in today's announcement to give money to help EDF finish Hinkley Point C? I mean, surely the most sensible thing is to get a nuclear power station that's being built operational as soon as possible. It's almost as if they're embarrassed about Hinkley because it's overrun so badly and overspent so badly, and yet they want to do the same again at Sizewell C. It's unfathomable.
I mean, it is a fair point, isn't it? You know, this golden age of nuclear power, history does tell us something slightly less shiny. Hinkley Point C's had several delays, cost overruns, won't start operating until 2029. Estimated cost of more than £30 billion at 2015 prices.
So on Hinkley Point C, it's little surprise that it took so long, and it's taking so long to build Hinkley Point C. The UK hasn't connected a nuclear reactor to the grid since 1995. I wasn't even 2 years old when the last nuclear reactor was connected to the grid, and so it's little surprise that it's taken that long to get back into the spirit of it. But as for the history of nuclear power, it actually does paint quite an optimistic picture when we look across the Channel to France, for example. They built 55 nuclear reactors in 25 years, starting in the 1970s. And at the apex of their nuclear energy production, it supplied 80% of France's electricity. And this was before the added pressure of climate change, before people started talking about
Alison Downs makes a good point, doesn't she? That if you are going to spend that much money, and it is an astonishing amount of money, why not do it to make Hinkley Point C get operating quicker?
Sure. The reality is for net zero by 2050, we're going to have to build nuclear reactors in parallel. We can't build them in series, one after the other. We have to start nuclear reactors before the last one is finished.
Alison, I mean, as I say, it's an astronomical amount of money, but the claims being made are significant. What, in your view, would be a better way to spend that money?
Well, first of all, we would like to see the government put a lot more money into energy efficiency. I mean, the Energy Secretary has been fighting for his Warm Homes plan as part of this spending review. And that would be a way to reduce our energy consumption, reduce household bills and create thousands of sustainable jobs across the country. Now, what's going to happen with Sizewell C? For the first time, it's being funded through a regulated asset-based model. That essentially will impose a nuclear tax on all consumers' household bills during the lengthy and uncertain construction. And that's never happened before in the UK. So making us bear that risk, I think, is unacceptable.
I mean, one of the points today is it's a 10-year project, but today's investment only covers 4 years. You know, you talk about uncertain construction. Do you worry that it won't actually get finished?
Well, I think we only have to look at HS2 to see that it's not over until it's over. I mean, the £18 billion that's been committed, including money that's already been spent, is the same as the original estimate for Hinkley Point C. As I say, it's, you know, Sizewell C will barely be halfway built by the time that money runs out. So there'll have to be considerably more investment after that.
I mean, are you worried about that? You know, the government have said, you know, this is a 10-year plan, talked about 4 years' money today. I mean, doesn't necessarily inspire confidence, does it?
History shows us that when countries build nuclear reactors at scale, they learn how to build them at pace. And so South Korea is a really good example. Whilst the time it takes to build a nuclear reactor has lengthened and lengthened in Europe and North America since the 1990s, because we haven't been doing it that much, timescales have actually gone down in Asia because they've built at pace and at scale. So you are
more confident about it being finished and being finished relatively speedily?
Sure, we learned a lot of lessons with Hinkley Point C, so we'll tap into that positive learning curve.
I mean, very briefly, one of the questions is always, when you talk about nuclear power, about safety. A lot of people talking about a nuclear plant built right on the coast, the threat of coastal erosion. How do you allay people's fears about that?
So the data show that nuclear is actually as safe as wind and solar. Because of the sheer quantity of energy that it produces. You don't need many nuclear reactors to produce an absolutely enormous amount of energy. And the history of nuclear power has an impeccable safety record punctuated by a very small number of very high visibility events, namely Chernobyl in the 1980s and more recently Fukushima. So it's actually as safe as wind and solar.
Alison Downs, very briefly, if you would. Obviously, you've been fighting Sizewell C for some time. Is this the end of that fight now for you and other campaigners?
No, we still haven't had a final investment decision. We still don't know what private investors are going to come in and what terms. We don't know what this project will cost. You know, we don't know what the completion date is likely to be. I think just on that matter of the coast, we're seriously worried about the Suffolk coast. It's been revealed there are overland flood barriers 10 metres high now being proposed that were never examined in the planning application. So there are all sorts of things that are going to come down the line with this project. They're going to make it more and more expensive to keep it safe from the sea. And if those were things that we costed now, we probably would think this was a very, very bad idea indeed, even worse than I think it is already.
Going to have to leave it there. I'm sure we'll talk about it again. To both of you, thanks very much for talking to us this evening.